My husband demanded to name our daughter after his dead wife. Because he thinks she's been reborn. When I first found out I was pregnant, I didn't cry. I laughed. Not because I didn't want it. I did, more than anything, but because I was in shock. After years of trying to build a stable home with a man who moved through life like he was always half somewhere else, I finally had something grounded. Something real. Something to look forward to. At least, that's what I thought. We were married for a little over a year. Together for 3 before that. I met Julian at a friend's work mixer in Portland, where I was living at the time. He was older than me by a few years, quiet, charming in a way that felt serious, like a man who'd seen loss and knew how to appreciate what mattered. He made me feel chosen. What I didn't know, not really, was how much of him I would never get. How much of him was still living in the past, in the shadow of someone else. Her name was Emily, his first wife. She died in a car accident 2 years before we met. They'd been married just shy of their 2nd anniversary, but they'd been together since college. High school sweethearts, by the sound of it. He never hid her from me. He talked about her often, always with reverence, like she was a saint. A beautiful, kind, gentle soul who made every day feel like spring. He even kept a few framed pictures of her in our house. I didn't mind. At first. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell, so you don't miss what happens next. You don't marry a widow and expect a blank slate. You expect some ghosts. But I didn't expect this. It started subtly. After the first ultrasound, Julian grew oddly quiet. Not distant, just contemplative. Like his head was always somewhere else. At night, I'd find him scrolling through old pictures. Of her. One time, I caught him staring at the calendar on his phone for almost half an hour. I asked what he was doing, and he said nothing. Just planning work stuff. I believed him. Until his mother came to visit. We were sitting on the patio, sipping herbal tea, making soft guesses about the baby's gender, still early, maybe 8 or 9 weeks in. I said I didn't want to get too excited until we had more info. That's when Julian leaned forward, real casual, and said, "I've been thinking about names." His mother smiled. "Oh, I think we should name her Marianne. If it's a girl." Marianne was Emily's middle name. My heart stopped. I laughed like it was a joke. "We don't even know if it's a girl." He didn't laugh. "Then we'll pick a male version," he said. "If it's a boy." His mother nodded, almost proudly. Like this had been decided. After they left, I confronted him. "Julian, are you serious?" He didn't blink. "She meant a lot to me." "I know," I said. "And I've never once disrespected that. But this is our child." He paused, then looked me straight in the eye. "I think she's coming back." At first, I thought I misheard. "What?" "The due date. It's the same week as Emily's birthday." I know it sounds crazy, but I can't shake it. "I think she's coming back to me through our baby." I stared at him. No sarcasm. No smile. Just complete, terrifying conviction. I thought maybe he was having a grief relapse. That this was a stress response to the pregnancy. So I told him we should wait. That we'd talk about names later. That it was too soon. He got quiet. Then cold. "You're being selfish," he said. "This means something." I couldn't believe it. I'd supported every memory he kept. Every story. I never once asked him to erase her. But this wasn't remembering. This was replacing. The next day, I stayed with my parents. He said I was overreacting. That I was being hormonal. That I needed to calm down. But I wasn't overreacting. I was finally seeing the truth. He didn't want our daughter. He wanted her. He didn't see this baby as the start of a new chapter. He saw it as a second chance at an old one. That night, his sister called me. Said he was hurting. That I needed to be more understanding. That I was jealous of a dead woman. That was the last straw. Jealous? No. I was scared. Confused. Alone. And I realized something that hit me like a punch to the chest. This man might love me, but he still belonged to someone else. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. And by the end of the week, I wasn't thinking about nursery colors or baby names. I was thinking about divorce. Not because I wanted it. Because it felt like the only way out of a relationship where I wasn't allowed to be seen. Only used to bring someone else back. The first time Julian tried to apologize, he didn't actually say the word sorry. He just sent a bouquet of lilies to my parents' house, where I'd been staying for 3 days. No note. No explanation. Just a vase and a familiar smell that made my stomach twist. Lily of the Valley. Emily's favorite flower. He used to tell me that casually, wistfully, back when I was still learning how to not flinch every time her name came up. He'd said it like trivia. Like a little piece of romantic history I should carry in my pocket. But now? Now it felt like a message. Like he wasn't trying to apologize to me. He was trying to honor her. My mom noticed it too. These are strange, she said carefully. He picked these. They were Emily's favorite. He knows you're allergic, right? I didn't answer. I just walked outside and dumped the whole arrangement in the garbage can. The next day, he showed up. No call. No warning. Just knocked on the front door in that calm, almost clinical way he always did when he was trying to appear composed. I didn't want to let him in. But my dad answered first. Julian stood there with a grocery bag, my favorite iced tea, prenatal vitamins, and a pair of soft gray baby socks. I just want to talk, he said. So I sat across from him in the living room, heart pounding, while my parents made themselves scarce in the kitchen. He opened with a smile. Like none of it happened. I've been thinking about what you said, he began. And I get it. You're scared. I didn't say anything. But this isn't just about her. It's about legacy. It's about meaning. Our daughter could carry something beautiful forward. Our daughter. I wanted to believe he meant ours, mine and his. But every time he said it, it felt more like a ghost had pulled up a chair between us. Julian, I said slowly, you want to name our daughter after your dead wife. You're not even hearing how disturbing that sounds. It's not disturbing. It's spiritual. No, I said firmly. It's not. It's delusional. And it's cruel to me and to this child. He looked away. Then back at me, I steeled. If you love me, you'll understand. This isn't just a baby. This is a second chance. A sign. That's when I realized. He wasn't hoping. He wasn't grieving. He was rewriting. He wanted to bring her back, not through memories, but through our daughter. And in his mind, I was just the vessel. I stood up. You need help, Julian. And until you get it, I'm not going back to that house. And you're not making any decisions about her name. He stood too. Calm. Controlled. Then I guess we'll see what the judge says. That stopped me cold. What does that mean? It means, he said, that I've already filed a petition to establish paternity. I'm not going to be cut out of this just because you don't understand what this child represents. My knees buckled. Not from fear. From the weight of it. He wasn't just obsessed. He was prepared. Later that night, I got a text from his sister. He told me everything. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be. You don't name a child after someone's trauma and call it healing, I replied. She didn't respond. I called an attorney the next morning. Her name was Layla. Sharp. Direct. No nonsense. She asked for the full story, and when I told her, she didn't flinch. I've heard stranger, she said. But this is up there. Do I have a case? You have a child on the way. That's your case. She walked me through the process. Custody agreements. Birth rights. Name disputes. Court orders. And then she asked, do you feel safe with him? I hesitated. Physically, yes. Emotionally, not even close. Then don't go back. Not until you have protections in place. I filed a motion to prevent unilateral decisions on the birth certificate. Layla helped me draft a letter stating that any naming decisions would be made mutually, not imposed by either parent. When Julian received the notice, he texted me, "You're turning this into a war." That's not what Emily would have wanted. That was the first time he referred to her by name during this fight. And it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about legacy. This wasn't about symbolism. This was about her. Still. Always. And I was just the one carrying the illusion. For weeks, I stayed with friends. Watched as my bump grew. Watched as my fear turned into rage. Watched as the man I married turned into someone I didn't recognize. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't slamming doors. But he was weaponizing grief in the most manipulative way I'd ever seen. One night, I wrote the name I wanted on a napkin. Just to see it. To feel it in my hands. Maeve. Soft. New. Nothing borrowed. Just mine. Ours. Without the ghosts. And I promised myself, no matter what happened, that's what she'd be. Her own person. Not someone's second chance at a love story they couldn't let go of. By the third trimester, every breath felt like a fight. Not because of the pregnancy, though yes, the swelling, the heartburn, the constant fatigue were all very real. But the real pressure came from everywhere else. Whispers, messages, side eyes from mutual acquaintances who didn't want to pick sides. Text from Julian's mother saying things like, "Don't punish him for missing her. You don't know what it's like to love someone and lose them overnight." They said these things like I hadn't been grieving too, not for a person, but for a marriage I was watching rot from the inside. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I met with Layla every week. We started drafting parenting agreements, medical boundaries, and a formal document requesting that Julian not be allowed in the delivery room unless invited by me, in writing. Because by then, I had reason to worry. 2 weeks earlier, Julian had tried to send a gift. A bassinet. Beautiful. Wooden. Handmade. Expensive. Inside was a note written in gold ink. For Mary and Emily Wexler, your second chance at being everything this world missed the first time. I couldn't even finish reading it. I left the bassinet in the hallway of my apartment building with a sign that said, "Free to a better story." It was gone in an hour. Then came the incident at the hospital. I had gone in for a stress test. Standard. Routine. Nothing major. But as I stepped into the waiting room, I saw him. Julian. Sitting with a bouquet of peonies and a baby book clutched in his hands. He stood up the second he saw me, beaming. "I figured you'd be here around now." I froze. "How did you know?" "Your sister posted something. #baby countdown. You should tell her to be more private." I didn't answer. I turned around and walked straight out, heart racing, vision tunneling. I sat in the car for 20 minutes trying not to throw up. Later that night, I called Layla. "He's stalking me now." He showed up uninvited. "You have that documented?" "No, but the receptionist saw him." "Get her statement. If he does it again, we escalate. But you're going to be okay. We'll keep him out of that hospital if we have to get a court order." "What if he shows up with paperwork?" "Then I show up with mine." I changed hospitals after that. Didn't tell anyone the new location except my doctor, my mom, and Layla. Even my best friend didn't know the name of the building. It felt extreme. But every part of me knew that Julian wouldn't stop until he was in the room, holding the baby, naming her something that didn't belong to her. A week before my due date, he sent another email. Subject line, final ask. "Savannah, I'm begging you to see this for what it is. Not a tragedy, not a battle, a reunion, a spiritual moment. You and I were chosen to bring her back, to finish what life cut short. I've already started filling out the paperwork. All I ask is that you allow her to have the name that's waiting for her." I stared at the screen, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I laughed, because the clarity hit all at once. He wasn't mourning Emily. He was trying to resurrect her. I replied with one sentence. "Our daughter is not a sequel." And I forwarded the email to Layla. The next morning, we filed an emergency order of hospital protection. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But by the time my water broke, right in the middle of folding baby laundry at my mom's house, I had peace of mind. Jonah drove me to the hospital. My mom stayed by my side. Layla stayed on call in case Julian tried to force entry or use his name to gain access. But he didn't come. Not that day. The birth was hard. 13 hours. Back labor. Crying so hard, I burst blood vessels in my face. But when I finally held her, all the fear, the noise, the emails, the flower deliveries, they vanished. She was mine. Not his fantasy. Not a ghost in a cradle. Mine. I named her Maeve. No middle name. Just Maeve. Simple. Whole. Undeniably hers. They handed me the birth certificate. For a second, I just stared at it. Then I picked up the pen. No hesitation. Just a name written in clean, confident ink. Maeve Wexler. Layla called me 2 days later. "How are you?" "She's perfect." And Julian hasn't shown his face yet. Let me know the second that changes. And Savannah. Yeah, you did everything right. I sat in that sterile hospital room, cradling the only thing in my world that made sense, and I whispered the same thing over and over into her tiny, sleeping ear. You are not anyone's replacement. You are not a symbol. You are real. You are new. You are you. The first week home with Maeve was a blur of quiet wonder. Sleepless nights, yes. Sir everything, absolutely. But she was mine. Here. Breathing. Real. Every time I looked at her, I felt like I was looking at a sunrise I hadn't earned, too beautiful, too impossible, but peaceful, until the envelope arrived. It came in the mail. No warning, no return address, just my name, printed in thick, blocky type on a beige envelope. Inside was a letterhead from Julian's lawyer. At the top, petition for legal name amendment and paternal establishment of rights. I sat down on the floor, knees weak. Maeve slept soundly in her bassinet nearby, unaware that someone was trying to erase her. I scanned the paperwork. He was petitioning the court to override the name on her birth certificate. Said he had religious and emotional grounds to believe the child's name needed to reflect her spiritual origin. He wasn't letting go. He was doubling down. I called Layla immediately. She answered on the second ring. He filed. Then we filed back. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Court dates were scheduled. Statements had to be written. Layla asked for screenshots of everything, every email, every flower delivery, every message from his sister, even the hospital incident. We prepared for a hearing. And Julian? He gave interviews. Small ones. Niche blogs. Fringe podcasts. But he spoke. And what he said made my blood run cold. In one interview, he said, "Grief is love that has nowhere to go. So when love shows up again, even in unexpected places, we should honor it. This child is not just a second chance. She's a continuation. A continuation." That was his whole argument. That Maeve wasn't Maeve as she was Emily, returning, reborn, redeemed. And if the court couldn't see that, then I was the one committing emotional cruelty by denying her her true name. Layla called me after listening to the clip. This man doesn't want custody. He wants control. He doesn't see her. Exactly. He sees her, the woman he lost. And if he can't have her back, he's trying to rewrite her into existence through your daughter. So what do? We show the court who the real child is and who you are. The hearing was held on a Thursday morning. Family court. Clean walls. No press. Just a judge, 2 attorneys, and one very tired mother trying to stay composed under fluorescent lights. Julian came alone. Wore a gray suit. Brought a folder full of printed baby name meanings, transcripts from his podcast appearances, and a framed photo of Emily. He didn't look at me once. The judge asked him why he wanted the name change. He launched into a monologue. About fate. About signs. About how Maeve was born the same week Emily had been. How she had her eyes. How he dreamed of her before the pregnancy. I believe she came back to me through this child. The judge was silent for a long moment. Then turned to Layla. Your response. Layla stood calmly. We are not here to debate reincarnation. We are here to protect the legal and emotional rights of a living child, born to a mother who has carried, delivered, and named her in good faith. She laid out the timeline, the evidence, the intent. She played a voicemail Julian left after the hospital incident. If you name her anything else, I'll never call her that. I'll tell her who she really is. That was the moment the judge leaned forward, pen tapping against the desk. He looked at Julian. You're suggesting that if this child doesn't carry your preferred name, you will actively undermine her identity? Julian hesitated, then said, I'll do what I have to so she knows who she is. The courtroom went still. The judge ruled the following day. No name change. No custodial privileges until Julian submitted to a psychological evaluation. Supervised visitation only. Pending review. I stared at the ruling for almost an hour. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I finally felt seen. Not as the difficult wife. Not as the jealous second love. But as a mother. A mother protecting her child from a legacy she didn't ask for. Maeve was asleep when I got home. I picked her up, held her to my chest, and whispered the same words I'd said in the hospital. You're not anyone's second chance. You're my first everything. That night, Julian posted a message on his blog. Some things cannot be seen by courts. But I know the truth. And I'll wait as long as I have to for her to remember. He still didn't say her name. Not once. Because to him, she never had one. Just a shadow of the one he lost. It came in the form of an email. Subject line. Emily wouldn't want this. Please read. The sender was unfamiliar. Nicole Darrington. No context. No greeting. Just that chilling subject line. Sent to my personal account in the middle of a Tuesday morning while Maeve was napping and I was trying to answer emails with one hand and eat toast with the other. For a moment, I considered deleting it. I didn't want more unsolicited opinions from people who only knew Julian through filtered grief. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it, and my entire understanding of everything unraveled. Savannah, I don't know if you remember me. I was Emily's cousin. We weren't close near the end, not because we fought, just life. Distance. Time. But I saw the podcast Julian recorded a few weeks ago, and it made me sick. He keeps talking about how she's come back, that your daughter is her, that it's beautiful, that it's fate. But you need to know something. Emily never wanted children. That line stopped me cold. She used to say it all the time, even as a teenager. She said she'd rather travel, rather adopt, maybe, later in life. But pregnancy terrified her. She hated the idea of motherhood. She thought it would trap her. I don't say this to speak ill of her. I loved her. But Julian is trying to mold your daughter into someone who didn't want to exist in that role. She was spiritual, yes, but she was grounded too. She would hate this. What he's doing, what he's claiming, what he's putting you through. I don't expect you to reply. I just couldn't watch this from a distance anymore. I had to say something. You deserve to know who Emily really was. And Maeve deserves the chance to be someone else entirely. Nicole, I read it 3 times. Then a 4th. Then I cried, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I'd been trying to scream into the void for months, that this wasn't about honoring the dead. This was about replacing them. Julian didn't just want Emily back. He wanted to make her over, more pliable, more motherly, more present through Maeve. He wasn't remembering her. He was rewriting her. And now that fantasy had started to crack. I forwarded the email to Layla. She called 20 minutes later. This changes things. Do we have a case? We've always had a case. But now we have motive. This proves he's not protecting her memory. He's distorting it. Will that hold up? If we frame it as psychological instability fueled by unresolved grief and show a pattern of behavior? Absolutely. So what happens now? We go for full legal custody. Until then, visitation was still being debated. Julian was allowed 1 hour a week in a supervised setting. The first time he met Maeve, she was 7 weeks old. It took everything in me not to show up and sit in the parking lot. But I didn't. Instead, I asked a social worker I trusted to be present, to watch, to document. Later, she told me Julian cried almost the entire hour, but never once called Maeve by her name. He called her Emily, she said, gently. Every time. That night, I stared at Maeve while she slept on my chest, and I made a decision. I was done defending her name. Now I'd defend her personhood. I filed for full legal custody the next day. Included the email from Nicole, the transcript from the podcast, the name calling from visitation, and the written testimony from the hospital staff who remembered the day Julian tried to show up unannounced. It was no longer about what Julian believed. It was about what he refused to let go of. He responded predictably, accused me of alienation, posted vague messages about justice and a mother's cruelty on his blog, tried to position himself as the victim. But it didn't work like it used to. People were starting to question him. Even some of his friends began to pull away, quietly, but noticeably, because the story was no longer clean, no longer poetic, just tragic, and not because of the past, but because of what he was doing to the present. The court date was set, 1 month out, 30 days to prepare, 30 days to build the case that Maeve wasn't a symbol or a spiritual project or a second chance at a lost life. She was a child, a real one, with real needs, and a real mother, me. In the meantime, I received a final message from Nicole. For what it's worth, Emily wouldn't have liked being worshipped this way. She made mistakes. She had doubts. She was human. Tell your daughter about that woman one day. Not the one Julian's trying to resurrect. I will. But not now. Not until she's old enough to understand what it means to live in the shadow of someone else's pain, and strong enough to step into the light. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, in tone. No one made eye contact. No one smiled. Even the bailiff, usually some comforting symbol of order, looked like he didn't want to be there. It had been nearly 9 months since the first time I said no to Julian. 9 months of court filings, therapy appointments, supervised visits, sleepless nights, and second-guessing myself at every step. And now I sat across from him in a wooden chair, arms folded around a notepad I wasn't reading, watching him avoid looking at me the same way he always did when he didn't want to confront the real version of something. He looked clean, calm, rehearsed, a man trying to look like someone the court could trust. But I wasn't afraid of that anymore. The judge entered. The hearing began. Julian's lawyer opened with the same message they'd been spinning for weeks. My client seeks joint legal custody of his daughter and inclusion in future developmental and naming decisions based on emotional and spiritual significance to the family legacy. It was smooth, well-worded, deliberate. They didn't mention Emily's name. They didn't reference reincarnation. Just legacy and continuity and connection. I watched the judge's pen move slowly across the desk. Then Layla stood. She didn't waste time. She opened with Julian's own words, printed from his blog, dated and time-stamped. The child is not new. She is a returned spirit, a continuation of a life cut short. Then she handed over a transcript from his podcast appearance. Then Nicole's letter. Then testimony from the social worker during his visitation, how he never once used Maeve's actual name. Then the declaration from my OB-GYN about the hospital incident. And finally, a printed image of the name Julian had submitted in his original petition, Mary and Emily Wexler. Not once had he asked how Maeve was doing. Not once had he attended an unsupervised pediatric appointment. Not once had he requested to know what Maeve liked, who she was becoming, because he didn't care. Not about her. Only about the symbol she represented. Then the judge looked at me. Ms. Wexler, do you have anything to add before I issue a ruling? I stood. My legs shook, not from nerves, but from the sheer weight of all I'd carried for nearly a year. I didn't have a speech. Just the truth. My daughter is not a legacy. She is not a second chance. She is not a memorial or a mirror or a shadow of someone else. She is her own person. She was born with her own soul, her own eyes, her own voice. And she deserves to grow up not wondering if she was enough, but knowing that she was never meant to be anyone but herself. I paused. I have no problem with remembrance. I have a problem with rewriting, with using someone else's grief to smother a child who is still learning to breathe. He never saw her. Not once. Because he was too busy looking through her. I sat down. The silence afterward was different. It wasn't cold. It was clear. The judge took a breath, then delivered the ruling. Full legal custody to the mother. Supervised visitation every other month, subject to reevaluation. No legal authority granted to request name changes. All parenting decisions, medical and educational, to be made solely by the mother. Immediate termination of any alternate naming claims filed with the Vital Records Office. Julian didn't flinch, but something in him fell. It wasn't visible, but I felt it, like the last thread of his illusion had finally snapped. Not because of court orders, but because the one person he thought he could control had walked away. We passed each other on the way out of the courthouse. He stopped. You'll never understand what she meant to me. I looked at him, calm. And you'll never understand what Maeve means to herself. He blinked. I kept walking. Later that night, Maeve reached for me with both hands. She was starting to babble. Her laugh sounded like gravel and wind chimes. Her eyes, always so curious, scanned my face like I was the whole world. And for once, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I didn't tell her the whole story. Not yet. But one day I will. Not to scare her. Not to make her carry the weight of someone else's past, but to remind her that even when people try to name you into a box, into a role, into someone else's legacy, you are still allowed to walk out of it. She is Maeve, not Marianne, not Emily, not anyone but herself. And she was never his to remember. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too.